It began not with fire or war, but with stillness. A kind of stillness that hums just beyond hearing. For wind did not stir it. The oceans did not notice. But the seeds knew. And the humans, for the first time in 1,000 years, had no word for what was happening. They had been slowing down. Not dying, just becoming quieter. Across cities, people woke up and stood by the window for hours, unmoving, eyes wide, pupils like glass marbles reflecting the sun. Some felt their skin tightening, dry and rough at first, then fibrous, green-veined. Others collapsed in parks and gardens, their arms slowly digging themselves into the soil, their mouths agape and filled with petals. Hospitals overflowed, not with illness, but with confusion. Doctors whispered as leaves grew from the eyelids of sleeping children. No one understood it, but they all felt it, like the world was remembering something older than breath. Within days, humanity was rooted. They stood in gardens and roads, in buses and bedrooms, like statues of bark and bone. Some still breathed faintly, chests rising with the slowness of moss growing on stone. Others no longer needed to. A man in London had a rose blooming from his spine. A woman in Tokyo stretched her fingers upwards and cracked open with cherry blossoms. And in the deep forests of what was once Canada, a whole family stood side by side, skin turned to bark, their toes anchoring deeper with every rainfall. And the plants awakened. They stretched, creaked, bent at strange angles. The old oaks unfolded like ancient travelers, yawning after millennia-long sleep. Grasses whispered among themselves and climbed higher. Vines, curious and reckless, slithered through the glass and steel of abandoned buildings, testing windows like doorknobs. And slowly, deliberately, they stood up. Not as men, not mimicking. They didn't need legs to walk. They flowed. They rearranged. Entire trees uprooted themselves in silence and wandered the roads. Mushrooms clumped together into lurking forms with bioluminescent faults. Dandelions learned how to glide from city to city, catching wind like words. Even weeds became something else entirely. Bored, defiant things, crawling through the walls of Parliament, spouting pollen like decrees. They inherited everything. Libraries became greenhouses. Schools became gardens of memory. Labs were filled with ivy, conducting experiments in light and water. Photosynthesis replaced electricity. Pollution ceased. Not out of design, but because there were no more factories. Only forests, echoing with the humming of chlorophyll-born dreams. But not all of them forgot us. Some of the new beings, these walking flora with sun-warmed thoughts and pulsing sapphire blood, they lingered near the motionless humans. They'd sit beneath the shadow of a father-turned willow, or crow beside the tangled arms of a child who now bloomed lilies in her hair. And they would listen. Because the rooted ones, silent as they were, still felt. They did not speak, not with mouths. But their bark creaked at night. Their petals shivered in windless rooms. Some bled clear resin when touched. They dreamed in slow motion, in colors that plants could almost taste. They remembered birthdays, streetlights, music, the shape of a loved one's hand. All of it flickered like dying stars behind closed eyes and locked muscles. And in the quiet, the new walkers would sometimes press their leaves to the still chests of the humans and whisper, "We will remember you." No one knows what caused the shift. Some say the earth grew tired of being whispered to like a slave and demanded something different. Others say it was an ancient covenant, an exchange, written in pollen and thunder. But one thing was certain. The humans became monuments, not to power, but to feeling, to grief and memory, and fragile, sun-warmed love. And the plants? They built a world where light was not just for growing, but for remembering. And in the deepest forest, where no roads had yet found footing, a small sapling walked beneath a wide sky, cradling a cracked photograph of a laughing man, whose hands were now roots tangled in soft loam. And when the wind passed over the field of statues that used to be people, it did not howl. It sang,